my fellow aviators and my beloved mechanics. Welcome to another video on my channel. And this one is kind of a boring one, to be honest with you. It's kind of a legal brief. It's the 9 criminal charges that I have filed against the National Transportation Safety Board regarding the 2019 Hawaii accident. So if you want to look up this accident report, the NTSB case number is WPR 19MA177, so that you can have that as a reference. Now, this article is going to be on aviatorsmarket.com, where you can go on there, just search my last name, R-I-T-E-R, and you'll find it under there, and then you can download and read the article on your own time. I'm going to quickly go through these things because it's a lot. It took me well over a month to prepare this criminal complaint and to submit it to the Department of Transportation Inspector General's office. Now, for those of you that have not been in the military or are not prior law enforcement, what the Inspector General office is kind of like the watchdog for an agency. So this is the law enforcement, the internal affairs, if you will, for the Department of Transportation, under which the National Transportation Safety Board falls under. So I have submitted this to a Miss Elisa, I'm going to mispronounce the name, Chatawaga? I don't know. I have a message in with her to speak with her in person and maybe learn how to pronounce her last name better, so I pray that she forgives me and you guys forgive me. What I'd like to explain to you is that with this National Transportation Safety Board report, I am not only looking at it as a pilot, as an aircraft mechanic, but I'm also looking at it with having 20 years as a special agent, with the Department of Defense, and as a special agent in the U.S. Coast Guard, and as a special investigator with the FBI. So I have 20 years of doing federal investigations. And boy, when I read this report, what a dumpster fire it is. And it leads me to believe that there's no internal affairs at the National Transportation Safety Board. None of their reports are reviewed for accuracy. They seem to become more of a political agency than that of a fact-finding agency. So with that being said, I would like to just emphasize that I have personally taken an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, to protect the American people 5 different times, as an enlisted Marine, as an officer in the Marine Corps, as a special agent in the Coast Guard, as a special agent with the Department of Defense, and then as a special investigator with the FBI. After about the 3rd time I took this oath, I started thinking to myself, maybe this is important. So I hope that you feel the same way about our Constitution and the rule of law. And it is my desire to see each of you, pilots and aircraft mechanics, not only treated fairly, but that the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the rule of law is provided to you and protects you. So that's where I'm coming from, because there is no money in doing this, and as you can see, I'm the only one doing it. So with that being said, and you know my motivation for doing this, let's launch into what the National Transportation Safety Board did in this accident investigation, where they deliberately misrepresented a fallen aviator that perished in the line of duty, and then badmouthed, defamed me, and ruined my business, my career, my reputation. I pray that we fix both of these situations, and more importantly, we prevent it from happening to you. The first count that I filed against the NTSB was under 31 CFR 0.211, which is a felony. It's for falsification of records. So now, if you go through this NTSB report, they knew, well, they were on the scene. When they talked to witnesses, there's at least 2 witnesses telling them that they heard the propeller being feathered on that King Air before it crashed. Then when they went to the accident scene, they arrived and found the left propeller in the feathered position. Then, when they shipped the left propeller to Hartzell Propellers, guess what? It was found to be in the feathered position. Now this is crucial because this points out to what happened on that accident. Captain Jerome Rennick lost the left engine. He identified it, he verified it, he feathered it. That is just standard multi-engine training. And even if you only have a private pilot license for multi-engine, you know this. So that was just clear cut. Now, the NTSB did everything they could to hide the fact that that left propeller was feathered. In fact, I missed it for well over a year, and I was reading through the report and picking it apart. It took me about a year to find it because it's so well hidden. But in there, they even describe when the propeller gets to Hartzell, how it was in the feathered position, and then they list what a feathered propeller is. Only thing is that they left out that this is done in case of engine failure in flight. They totally omitted that whole sentence. You only need to go to Google to find it. So now, another falsification they did is with the Hartzell analysis. Hartzell didn't even write this report. It's so full of errors, how could they? And I was initially told by Les Dowd that he didn't write it. Hartzell had nothing to do with it. And I believe him. But then, of course, going back, Les Dowd said that it was his report, and he agreed with everything on it. So once again, that's just the FAA and the NTSB, being the schoolyard bullies they are, enforcing even our aircraft manufacturers into just saying whatever that they have to say to keep their job. So I don't even hold it against Mr. Les Dowd. Now, another thing is they deliberately omitted several facts in the investigation. You, my friends, and the American public were just told that I was a bad flight instructor just solely on the fact that the accident pilot, Captain Jerome Rennick, failed his initial check ride for his private pilot, his instrument, and his multi-engine. That was it. And they cut off all this discussion and didn't provide you any additional information. Well, I had to go through a 2-year process of doing a Freedom of Information Act, and I found out that the Riverside FSDO had a 62% pass rate back then in 2017. Did they share this information? Did they list it on the NTSB report? No, of course not. They purposely used the national pass rate of 75% to point out what a bad instructor I was. So they falsified the pass rate at the local FSDO where the accident pilot was actually taking his check rides. And they did that on purpose. The second thing that they did is they falsified or omitted several facts about my personal flight instructor records. We flight instructors are held accountable for not only the check rides, but also the written tests. These both take an endorsement from the flight instructor and were held accountable for both of these tests. Now, what the NTSB did was they just took the check rides. Now remember, the pass rate in the Riverside FSDO was only 62%. My pass rate during that period, initial pass rate on the check ride, was 59%. Mind you, I was doing foreign students, which are particularly hard to do. And most flight schools that have foreign students are hovering around a 50% initial pass rate on their foreign students. So this wasn't fair in itself. But then they deliberately excluded my pass rate on my written tests for my students, which, when you take that into account, it brought up my initial pass rate to 74%. This was completely omitted on the NTSB report on purpose to defame me. So that's another falsification of the NTSB report. Now, the next topic is witness tampering. This falls under 18 USC 1512, which is another felony. So this is described as otherwise influence a witness to an official proceeding. Now this is in a criminal case and also a civil proceeding, which the NTSB and the FAA was trying to put forth on me. So this counts. Now on the witness tampering, I'm just going to go into a little bit because I'm going to have a whole separate article on that. But if you read the witnesses on this and you look at the timeline, you can see that the NTSB did everything in their power to cultivate and manipulate the witnesses to providing a false narrative that the accident pilot, Captain Jerome Rennick, was a reckless and bad pilot. So now if we look at the timeline of the witnesses, the first witness they interviewed was a Brian Wagner. Now Brian Wagner said he liked flying with Jerome because he was a consistent and predictable pilot. He said that Jerome would often pitch and bank kind of strongly to get out of the jump area, the traffic pattern. This was a standard operating procedure at Oahu Parachute Center. It was takeoff, short field takeoff with an obstacle, turning left to get out of the jump zone and the traffic pattern. Jerome Rennick was flying that airplane to commercial standards. That's all he was doing. And you see in a King Air, which is a high performance airplane, it's a pretty good performing airplane. This is climbing out at 1,500 feet per minute. Please, if you doubt that this is something that other people would say was kind of scary, okay, take your passengers up in a 172 or a Piper Archer. And remember, this King Air was not pressurized. So take them up and start climbing at 1,500 feet per minute. See what they say. And under commercial standards, Jerome was expected to be able to turn that airplane at a 50-degree bank to make that turn. That's just commercial standards. He wasn't doing anything reckless. He was flying the airplane as a commercial pilot. So after we have Brian Wagner saying that Jerome was a good and steady pilot, then we walk on to the next witness, Mr. Richard Wesley Rogers, who described Jerome as a good stick and related that the plane she flew straight. So now, on this witness, we hear once again that Jerome Rennick was a good pilot. Then they interview George Rivera, who was the owner of Oahu Parachute Center, who just had no statements about Jerome being a reckless pilot at all. He just said Jerome was his only pilot, and he just left 90 minutes earlier that day of the accident. That was his initial comment. Now we get to the clown that everybody quotes. And I feel, in my opinion, with 20 years as a federal law enforcement officer, this guy is the worst witness at all of all of them. And he's the only one that's ever quoted. So this is Anthony Tony Skinner. So in this interview with Tony Skinner, who's no longer a pilot at Oahu Parachute Center, he starts to talk about how Jerome did barrel rolls in a King Air. As an aircraft mechanic, a licensed airframe and power plant mechanic, and as a mechanic with inspection authorization, I can tell you that if he did a barrel roll in a King Air without a reversing oil pump to keep that engine oiled, just doing one barrel roll, he would have smoked those engines. Those engines were running at full specs at the time of the accident. So this is very unlikely and not really possible. And you know, those guys at the NTSB would have known this fact. Why? Because they got to have at least a mechanic on board, you would think. But then I found out something interesting about these big political reports, is that when it is a big accident on a national level like this was, they don't contract out to pilots and mechanics that are out working in the field, that are one, honest, and two, know what they're looking at. So this report was done solely by the NTSB, by David Lawrence, whose only qualifications was he was a retired airline pilot, and probably had a friend in the NTSB that got him in. Then we got Elliot Simpson. I don't know his background, but it's probably similar. So they had no help from us aviation community, and were just fumbling bureaucrats putting together a report. And boy, it shows. So now, not only did Tony Skinner say that the accident pilot did barrel rolls, he also said that he would bank hard and pitch up aggressively in order to put on a show for the passengers. If this was the case, you would have seen the owner of the parachute school having given him written reprimands, there would have been several complaints coming in. We do not see that at all. And once again, if you put somebody that doesn't come from a pilot background and you do a short field takeoff with an obstacle with a 50-degree bank to the left in a King Air doing 1,500 feet per minute, yeah, that's going to be called a spicy takeoff. In fact, it is what it is. Well within standards, well within the safety margins. Now, the next thing that this Tony Skinner goes on to say is that the mechanic, Mr. Robert Bobby Salidas, was pissed off with what Jerome was doing and was very unhappy with Jerome. Now, why would he say that? Because the next person that they talked to is Robert Bobby Salidas, who was the mechanic on the aircraft. Guess what Bobby said? He said that he took a liking to the accident pilot and that he was a good stick. And he even is quoted as saying, he was knowledgeable. He knew that aircraft. I did at least 50 hours of training in the King Air with him, C-90, same type of airplane. This one was just a later model. Jerome was a good pilot. He was excellent. So now we get to another thing that Bobby the mechanic said. He said he advised the investigators that there was a lot of competition on the field and that the other FBOs would have liked George Rivera to fail, just to get him out of the picture, just to have a monopoly on the skydiving operations there at the field. This is very common at airports, and I've experienced this kind of backlash and this kind of backbiting at the airports that I've had an FBO at. It's very common. So Bobby related that they would do anything to spread malicious rumors about George Rivera, about the accident pilot, and then it was just left at that. It's in the report. You can go read it. Did the investigators go back and talk to Tony Skinner to collaborate? Maybe ask some obvious questions like, why aren't you a pilot at Oahu Parachute Center anymore? Did you get fired? Do you have any bad feelings about the Parachute Center? Are you upset with the accident pilot that took your job? These would have been fantastic questions. In fact, they would be standard questions if they had a real investigator doing this investigation. Those questions weren't even asked. Then we see on 12th of November, far after the accident investigation has kind of been done, they just call back and Mr. Elliot Simpson goes back to interview the owner, George Rivera of the Parachute Center. So in here, we can see Mr. Simpson asking very leading questions, trying to tamper with that witness to get him to say something that he doesn't want to say. So we kind of see the response that George gave to this investigator, and that was he could surmise, guess, that with him being gone, maybe the accident pilot was showing off in the airplane. He said that could have happened, but he didn't know of it. So what we don't see in the report is we don't see the investigators leading questions and forcing him in to make a statement about the accident pilot being reckless. We don't see that. That they do follow-up questions to prove that the accident pilot was reckless. We see no follow-up questions on the outrageous statements that Tony Skinner made. No collaborating information was given. Tony provided the statements that they wanted, and so they didn't challenge it at all. And much to my horror, he has been the main witness that has been referenced throughout this whole report. Now we get into perhaps the weirdest thing I think that happened in this report. In this report, the accelerated stall testimony from somebody that's not even a pilot. So remember, the NTSB by this point knew that Jerome Remnick lost the left engine, that it was an engine failure that caused this accident, by the sheer fact that they found a feathered propeller, left feathered propeller. So now they talk to a Mr. Jonathan House. So now, Jonathan House says he's not a pilot, but he has this above average understanding of aerodynamics. Okay. So now he says that he has friends that he's talked to that have experience flying King Airs and skydiving operations, and that these friends confirmed with him that what happened at Hawaii, at that airfield that morning, was an accelerated stall. Now, let's talk about accelerated stall and a stall. I teach multi-engine students. It takes many ground lessons to go over to teach the difference between a stall, whether it be accelerated or just normal, and a VMC event, which this was. Stall, the nose of the airplane just comes straight down. It will go into a spin if you're uncoordinated, but it never flips inverted. Whereas on the VMC, that's the hallmark of a VMC event, that good engine takes over the airframe and flips the airplane inverted. And we see several witnesses and even video that the plane crashed into the ground inverted at a 45-degree angle. That right there showed that it was a VMC event. But now they bring in this Jonathan House and talk about how his friends confirmed that it was an accelerated stall that caused that accident. No background in aviation, he's just assured. I beg to differ. Yes, I beg to differ.
I beg to differ, sir.
First off, how do we get a person just out in the public that's able to write in or be interviewed by the NTSB and explain an accelerated stall? That's an advanced aerodynamic maneuver, or what happens in multi-engine operations. This is advanced aerodynamics. And yet he's able to hear it from his friends one time and repeat it back perfectly to the NTSB investigators. What? That's kind of a little bit outside the envelope of being reasonable. Second thing is, okay, if he has friends saying it was an accelerated stall, and remember the investigators desperately wanted this to be proven, that's what they were told to prove, how come they didn't go out and interview these friends? And how many skydiving operations have a King Air? Especially in Hawaii, on the north shore of Hawaii, a very isolated community, and I think the accident airplane was the only King Air out there. Where are these friends that have all this experience flying a King Air for a jump operation? Hey, why didn't the investigators say, hey, Jonathan House, can we have the phone numbers of your friends and talk to them? Nope, that wasn't done. That would be the obvious first question. And if you know Oahu Parachute Center, at that airport, at that airport, there's only like about 15, maybe 20 full-time people there. This is a place that has tourists coming through it, skydivers, glider operations. I flew gliders there. I know this area. It's a small, tiny operation. And what these NTSB investigators could not find anybody else to collaborate, Mr. Jonathan House. I find that to be just about criminal in nature. I won't talk anymore about the witnesses and the witness tampering. That's going to come up in a future article where I'll go into that in depth. So now, just to cut down on the time on this, let's kind of just go through the other criminal complaints that I'm filing. So count 3, a felony, and that's under 49 U.S. Code 46314 entering aircraft or airport area in violation of security requirements, which is a felony. So now, on 16th of January 2020, Mr. David Lawrence and a team of his co-workers came out to California, just for the 1 day, 1 or 2 days. So they came out, they found out my aircraft, my King Air, was not at Torrance anymore, it was over at Long Beach, which is it has Southwest, it has JetBlue, so it's an AOA airport. So it's covered heavily by TSA and the TSA regulations to protect the airlines. They did not have time to go to badging and get a badge. And they couldn't get a warrant because even to this day, there's no criminal charges even made against me. No civil violations. Not even a FARS violation. Just name calling. I'm a bad CFI. So just with this, they knew that they couldn't get a warrant to go into the hangar. They knew that if they went to the FBO, they'd get thrown off the field. Because I talked to the FBO there with Ross Aviation. They told me that they have a strict policy on government employees coming into the airport and that they have to be checked in, and that if they didn't have a warrant, there's no way they were going to let them search a private renter's hangar. So what they did was they snuck on the airport. They illegally trespassed on Ross Aviation property. Then they broke into my personal hangar, which has a personal domicile there. So this is in violation of the Fourth Amendment of illegal search and seizure. Then they crawled around the airplane, and somehow they got looking into the side window to see if the airplane had dual yokes. Why they were concerned about dual yokes, who knows? But in order to do that, that's 7 feet high in the air. They would have had to manhandle a ladder around the propeller, around the engine nacelle, around the leading edge of the aircraft wings to climb up to look. Or they had to climb up on the wings with all these no walk stickers on it and climb onto the wing of the airplane to look in. That's the only 2 ways to do it. Now under this falls under a California count. It's 625B, Penal Code 625B, tampering with aircraft. This is a misdemeanor. This is count 4. And I'll be going more into that in another article where I'm filing criminal charges with the Long Beach District Attorney's Office on this. For not only the security violation at Long Beach Airport, which was fully reported to the badging office, to the airport security, and to a gentleman named Scott, I don't remember his last name, but full report given to him, he just ignored it. So now I'm going to be going to the district attorney's office there to see, do our constitutional rights disappear once we're on the airport? Is just any government employee able to just break into our hangars at whim, even if we have a domicile there? So it's just like our house. It's like a business or an RV. Just break in at the whim with no probable cause, with no warrant, and just do whatever they want. Is it allowable for any government employee to just walk up to any of our planes and go around it with a ladder, banging it into propellers and leading edges and nacelles, damaging the airplane, and then not telling us so that when we come out for the next flight, we don't know of any damage that they caused. If they were walking around on the wings, they could have caused some serious damage there. Wasn't even told they did that until I read the report. Is this NTSB policy? I doubt it. And remember, we're talking about retired airline pilots that haven't pre-flighted a plane in decades. First officers do that. Not a mechanic. I doubt if he had a mechanic with him. And, there we are. So now on count 5 here, like I said, violation of Fourth Amendment, unlawful search and seizure. We already went over breaking into the hangar and doing that. Then we have obtaining my personal FAA records under this as well. Without a warrant, without probable cause. The NTSB went to the FAA and pulled my personal FAA records. Now, I was not given a Privacy Act advisement, so that's the next count, but they illegally obtained my records. No warrant, no judge involved, no criminal charge, just on a hunch that I was a bad CFI. So they were in search of just finding something to charge me with to back up their report. So now my records were sent off to the NTSB. And when I filed a complaint with the FAA Privacy Act of 1974 Privacy Shop, Mr. Abram Evans came out and investigated it and kind of did everything that he could to cover it up. So this will be fully covered in another article called the FAA Privacy Act Shop, the Cover-Up Shop. So you'll be seeing that article coming out sometime soon. Then we have count 6. This is kind of a personal one for me. On count 6, you can see on there on the NTSB subpoena to me. Now all of a sudden, the NTSB made up a subpoena and served it on the same day in Washington, D.C. That's what it looks like. When you look at it, it looks like they served it on the same day. I don't know if that's actually what they were saying, but they never served a subpoena. So now, on that day when they said that they served it, I was flying my King Air in Mexico, so there's no way they could have legally served me. So to this day, they have never legally served me, but they put in the report that they did just to defame me. And I remember during that time, I had some internet trolls and you know, typical pilots living in their mom's basement, you know, drinking Mountain Dew Extreme, go on there and talk about how, I think it was Dirtbag. Yeah, it was Dirtbag. What a dirtbag I was for not answering that subpoena. So anyways, I'd like to answer that. I would like the NTSB legal office to maybe follow the law. So I was denied due process on this, and that falls under 43 CFR 20.510. That's false statements in a government matter, and then also violation of my due process for legal process. They violated it. Count 7, violation of the Privacy Act of 1974. This is 3 criminal violations that the NTSB did. And once again, that will be in an upcoming article. But what they did was they took my pilot logbooks and they published them on the internet. Anyone could go on there, look at my N numbers of my personal airplanes, and find out my full name and my home address. That's mostly the basis of the Privacy Act violation that they did. This was 3 criminal misdemeanors that they did. So I'm pursuing that too. Now, number 8 is destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in a federal investigation. This falls under 18 U.S.C. section 1519 and 25 CFR 11.440. So now, this is tampering with the fabrication of physical evidence or hiding evidence. What the NTSB did was they broke into my AOL email account and hacked and erased all the emails that I had from the NTSB. I have proof that these emails were erased because I sent at least one of the emails to my legal team. And so that's how I had a copy of it. Now, on 17th of February 2021, my favorite ghoul, yes, ghoul, at Riverside FISDO, Mr. Roy Peters, he wrote me an email that he was going to get me. So all of a sudden, this email just disappeared off of my email account. And then at 1:16 in the afternoon, he followed up with a very friendly and very pleasant letter from the FAA, just advising me to change my address and that all was good and that he was there to help me. I mean, the love in that email gushed, just gushed. So, of course, it was Mr. Peters just covering his butt after he sent an email that should get him fired. We're going to recover that email. I have no doubt about it. So, you know, all of you saying I'm making it up, we'll have proof. So now, you know, I didn't think that the FAA and NTSB had the ability to break into our private email accounts. Please, my fellow pilots and my beloved mechanics, anything you get from the FAA and NTSB, print it out, keep it in a hard copy file. You cannot trust it to be kept safe on the internet. Now the last thing that I kind of filed against them is malicious prosecution. And I'm still dealing with that. In fact, I just lost a job at San Bernardino Valley College because the FAA came out there and threatened their certification if they hired me, calling me a rabble-rouser. When I found out they called me a rabble-rouser, I broke out into tears. I really did. It's the nicest thing anybody has ever said about me. I appreciate that. Thank you, FAA. But anyways, yeah, I wasn't hired after I was told I got the job because the FAA came out there and threatened a college's certification. This happened at California Baptist College too. So this was the second time. I've lost other jobs with flight schools and flight departments. So this malicious prosecution does not stop. The FAA does not stop. Trouble is, it's kind of like in that Batman movie when Batman pulls up the Joker after he was falling to his death and he says, "This is what it's like when you see an immovable object being forced against an unrelenting force." Well, that's me in the FAA, and this is going to continue. I'm not stopping. So now, over is corrective actions. These 9 criminal complaints have been filed against the NTSB. They are with the Department of Transportation Inspector General's office right now, being reviewed, and I hope to talk to the main boss of the investigations office there and find out the status and interview her on these charges. Maybe not the case, not until it gets done, but on these charges. So I look forward to talking to her soon. So now, once again, these NTSB people, they're not aviation professionals. They don't give a damn about us pilots, us mechanics, what's released to the general public. It's political now. It's just whatever they're told to submit. I fear are nothing more than common thugs, criminal thugs in nice suits. They are not aviation professionals. They are monsters. In this case, I'm talking about with what I have experienced personally and with the accident pilot, Captain Jerome Rennick. These are monsters feeding on corpses. They are, in fact, ghouls.